Distinguished guests, friends of the Wellesley College community, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am Cadet Emma Carter, Wellesley College Class of 2019. It is my pleasure, on behalf of the Wellesley College Reserve Officer Training Corps program, to welcome you to the 2017 Wellesley College Veterans Day ceremony. At this time, please stand for the posting of the colors and the national anthem performed by Wellesley College Class of 2021 student Erica Mall.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Order. Arms. About. Face. Colors. Cover. Recover. Left. Face. Home. Mark.
Please be seated. Dean Tiffany Steinwert will now give the invocation.
Let us be together. We gather this day to join our hearts and voices with a multitude of others across this nation in honoring the veterans of war who for the world's sake sought peace. Calling to mind the many women and men who have faithfully served their country, both those among us today and those of generations past, we come to express our gratitude for their courage and selflessness. We come to express our gratitude for their honor, for the way in which they have sacrificed and for the sacrifices of their families. And we come to pledge ourselves as partners in their homecoming, not simply celebrating, but accompanying, supporting, companioning them as they re-enter civilian life with all they carry back from service. For without their willingness to serve, humanity's ancient and universal dream of peace would perish. And so may on this day our veterans be surrounded with a mantle of gratitude and love. May they be welcomed into community, not simply for what they have done, but for who they are, fierce, compassionate, tender, selfless, and strong. And may they be granted a peace beyond that which they fought to secure, a peace in their hearts, a peace that binds the wounds of war and honors the scars of sacrifice, a peace that whispers loud and clear, "You are loved," a peace that passes all understanding. And so as we gather this morning, may we turn our eyes to the horizon of that promised day, when an enduring peace shall reign and the efforts of our valiant veterans shall not be in vain. Amen.
Thank you, Dean Steinberg. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, former Naval Intelligence Specialist, First Class Ayala Kirk. Ayala enlisted into the Navy in 2006 and was assigned to a Naval Intelligence Unit in Washington, D.C. She joined the Naval Special Warfare Community in 2010. Former Petty Officer Kirk was the only female deployed as a part of the Tactical Intelligence Support Team for SEAL Team 2 during Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. Her awards include the Army Commendation Medal, the NATO Medal, the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, the Expeditionary Intelligence Specialist designation, and the Information Dominance Warfare designation. She hopes to continue her college studies and has applied to the Wellesley College Davis Scholars Program since moving to Massachusetts. Her husband, Sergeant First Class Sean Kirk, is a new cadre member and professor of military science at Army MIT ROTC. And they have a 1.5-year-old daughter, Maya. Please join me in welcoming former intelligence specialist, First Class Ayala Kirk.
Good morning. First and foremost, I'd like to thank ROTC Cadet Schuyler for inviting me to this event to speak to you. This is an honor I never thought I'd have, so I'm never going to forget it. And so, ROTC Cadet Schuyler, thank you very much. Good morning, President Johnson, Dean O'Keefe of the Davis Scholars Wellesley Program. As you all heard, I'm former Petty Officer Intelligence Specialist Ayala Kirk. I served in the Navy for 8 years. I joined right after I graduated high school in June of 2006. My first duty station was Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, New York. It was a reserve unit that needed help with getting their intelligence, program off the ground. So enter the female who can multitask, who can organize, who can speak across all levels of leadership. So I came in and my eval for that year earned me Sailor of the Year for my unit by increasing production by 274%. Literally came in and I just saw a huge mess and did what females do, and I earned Sailor of the Year for that year. After that, I was recommended for an expeditionary deployment with SEAL Team 2 based on the work I did at the unit and some of the work I did outside. I love volunteering, and I suppose my leadership saw that as a positive quality, so off to the SEAL teams I went. I was 21 years old. I hadn't gotten my license yet. From New York City, we had the transportation system. We don't drive in New York City. You just stay off. You stay off the roads. So 21 in Washington D.C. Checking into the SEAL teams. I didn't know what I was in for. I get there. My leading petty officer CCAT, amazing lady. I get there and I'm briefed prior to even meeting my supervisor that she was mean, unapproachable, she was by the book, she didn't give any chances. Every trait of a strong female is usually negative, and it was attributed to Petty Officer CCAT. So what did I do when I get there? I kept my head down and I tried to stay out of her way. Was that the correct thing to do? Absolutely not. By doing that, I robbed her of the chance to lead. As a female, I should have taken it upon myself to say, I've been in leadership roles before, and I know that it's kind of skewed, especially in a field such as intelligence when it is mostly male. So before stepping out of the door, she pulled me to the side and she said, she sat me down. I had never spoken to her before, so I thought I was in trouble. She sat me down and she gave me a huge piece of advice that I carried throughout the Navy and that I will never forget, and I hope to pass on to all of you. She said, when checking into a command that is, or an office, or whatever field that is all male or mostly male, we always get a common piece of advice. Become one of the guys. Get them to see you as one of the guys. Be buddy-buddy. I'm here today to tell you don't. It is better to get them to see you as a female family member. Get them to see you as a female family member. You don't want to be seen as one of the guys. You get seen as one of the guys, you get unexpected sheep in your bed in the middle of the night. Guys play jokes all the time. You as a female don't want, I guess you don't want that. So, in country, when I got in country to Afghanistan, I relied heavily on Petty Officer CCAT's leadership back home. I emailed her for advice on what to do in certain situations since I was the only female on my intelligence team. When I got in country, there were two other females that I relied heavily on, Petty Officer Sarah Morgan, and Petty Officer Lewis. Both females were the only females of their specific specialty. Petty Officer Lewis was communications, and for mission essentialness, that's huge. She was in charge of communications, I was in charge of intelligence. For a SEAL team, that's huge. The third part to a successful mission is weather. That was Petty Officer Morgan. So the three top spots for that SEAL team during that deployment were filled by females, myself, Petty Officer Morgan, and Petty Officer Lewis. This deployment served to us as an example that women in special ops are absolutely needed. A lot of my training was focused on analytical work. When I got into country, I was thrown into the drone warfare community, not knowing anything, so I had to be a fast learner. I had to be be able to communicate across all levels of leadership. I had to be able to type fast. I had to be able to multitask. All traits inherently female. So I was thrown in and I thankfully did amazing. So I stand before you today to just let you know that women are absolutely essential to every part of success, to the success of this country, be it from being at war or being home, supporting men that are forward, mentoring women that we consider peers. So I leave you today hoping that you take away that women are essential to I hope you take away that women are essential to everything in this country, from being in the kitchen to the battlefield. Thank you.
Thank you, former Intelligence Specialist First Class Kirk, for sharing your thoughts with us today. It is my pleasure now to introduce Major Kelly Overstreet. Major Overstreet commissioned in 2005 from Western Michigan University as a quartermaster officer, and following this, she was assigned to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, as part of the 82nd Airborne Division. Here, she served as an aerial delivery platoon leader and company executive officer, Battalion S4, aide-de-camp, and assistant brigade S4. In 2008, she deployed to Iraq and commanded Alpha Company, 82nd Brigade Support Battalion, 3rd Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne Division. Following this, in 2011, Major Overstreet taught at the United States Military Academy at West Point in the Department of Military Instruction. In 2005, she was in the 1916th Support Battalion Executive Officer for Fort Irwin, California, and then for a year as the Support Operations Officer for the 916th Support Brigade at the National Training Center in Fort Irwin, California. She holds a Master of Business Administration from Webster University and a Master's of Arts in National Security and Strategic Studies from the United States Naval War College. Her awards and decorations include the Bronze Star, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Army Commendation Medal, the Army Achievement Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Iraq Campaign Medal, the Global War on Terror Service Medal, Military Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal, the Army Service Ribbon, the Overseas Service Ribbon, the Meritorious Unit Commendation, the Combat Action Badge, the Senior Parachutist Badge, and Parachute Rigger Badge. She is currently stationed at Boston University as the Army ROTC Operations Officer and recently married her husband, Lucas Overstreet. Please join me in welcoming Major Kelly Overstreet.
Veterans Day, an official U.S. holiday that honors military veterans. That is, persons who have served in the United States Armed Forces. It actually coincides with other holidays, including Armistice Day and Remembrance Day, celebrated in other countries, marking the anniversary of World War I. Why November 11th? This is because major hostilities of World War I were formally ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day on the 11th month of 1918, when the armistice with Germany went into effect. Initially, the United States also observed Armistice Day. However, in light of the sacrifices of World War II, renamed the holiday Veterans Day in 1954. Veterans Day, though, should not be confused with Memorial Day. Veterans Day celebrates the service of all U.S. military veterans, as opposed to Memorial Day, which honors those who died while in military service. President Johnson, Dean O'Keefe, Dean Steinwert, Dean St. John, Lieutenant Colonel Godfrey, Lieutenant Colonel Ott, representatives of the Wellesley Police and Fire Department, students, faculty, and guests of Wellesley College, and of course, my fellow veterans here today. Thank you for attending this event and affording me this opportunity to share with you as we celebrate the men and women who have served and are currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. At this time, could all veterans here today please stand so we may celebrate in your honor, those present and past. In prepping my remarks for today, I knew there were millions of stories of honor and courage that could be said about these great men and women. In doing so, I pondered, how could I best honor them? How could I most make them proud? As I thought, reflecting on their history of sacrifice, I realized they might best be honored if I could only capture their wisdom and pass it on to you today. So while I can't possibly harness their passion for service, their resounding struggles, or infinite successes, I can do my best to share the most important lessons from some of the greatest veterans I know. And so I thought of 3 things. Lesson 1, that leadership comes in many forms. Lesson 2, that courage can be developed. And lesson number 3, choose your course and make it deliberate. Lesson from veteran number 1, leadership comes in many forms. I had spent 4 years in ROTC, 6 months at my officer basic course, and roughly 1 year assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division as a parachute breaker platoon leader. My training had prepared me well. I was building a platoon that was rising to the top in not only metrics, but reputation. With my platoon excelling, I was selected to attend Jump Master School, the utmost achievement for a rising airborne leader. On the inside, however, I had all but lost myself. The 82nd Airborne was, and still is, known for its fast pace and its high-performing paratroopers. It produces leaders like a factory, and it propelled my career into what it has become today. But it was a tough place. Type A personalities everywhere you looked, soldiers pumped full of grit and gut, and a lot of in-your-face style of leadership. You know the type. If you're not yelling, you're not trying, and as a result, most things got yelled. For me, I understood doing the right thing without a need for getting yelled at. But the ladder to up seemed all the same. And so I thought I must be overly direct, overly harsh, and of course, made of steel. My internal conflict grew. Be myself or succeed, either or, but not both. One veteran saw my strife. Luckily for me, he was my first company commander. He was and is a rock star leader, an absolute, compassionate, intelligent man of integrity and fortitude. He knew me. He saw my potential. Most importantly, he taught me that finding my own style was the most essential tool when transforming potential into downright great leadership. So I close this point not to say that the 82nd Airborne was too tough on its troopers. Absolutely on the contrary. Jumping out of planes is serious business. And there's a time when focused, tough, and direct leadership is not only important, but essential to keeping young paratroopers safe and ready to fight and win our nation's wars. I tell this story to say that leadership can and should take on many different forms. So as I speak with you, many of you close in age to the officer I was then, I want to pass this lesson on, that you can lead in many forms, from the front, from the back, out loud, or quietly behind the scenes. Whatever your style, I urge you, do lead, and when you do it, it must be authentic, and it must be you. Lesson from a veteran number 2. Courage can be developed. Regarding courage, there are 2 schools of thought I've heard in my career. Some have said, courage, you either have it or you don't. Others, however, will assure you that despite what these may say, courage can be developed. I, like my second lesson indicates, am a subscriber to the latter. Soon after lesson number 1, I found myself 25 years old in a new unit deployed to Iraq and offered to a company command position leading 240 soldiers, storing, managing, and distributing supplies in and around Baghdad. Yes, being deployed was scary, but being given 240 soldiers to train, lead, and keep safe was so much more. Quite frankly, it was overwhelming, and I didn't want the job. Luckily, again, that wasn't my choice, but yet another veteran's choice, who saw something in me I didn't. And so, as those of you who've served so fondly know, like it or not, the job was mine. The job was hard, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constant concerns for security, and young men and women with real lives and real problems halfway around the world, where I was often faced with making the most difficult of decisions. In fact, when I gave my farewell speech, I could only say these 2 years of command were the heaviest responsibility I had ever known. It was true then, and 10 years later, it is still true today. Today, however, 10 years post-command, I am left with some fading memories. I'm also left with clarity. Clarity on those key lessons that still ring true. For me, it's that every challenge, every tough call, every confrontation that I didn't want but chose to push through, all made me tougher. Essentially, every day was a practice in pushing through discomfort, and should I be given those same situations today, I'd have more confidence that in facing them and more courage to persevere. I essentially know I could do it. Through practice, I developed confidence, and with confidence, I developed courage. So I encourage you, take on these challenges, push through hardships, and together we can each continue to develop our courage. Courage to do the right thing, courage to stand up for those who need us, and courage to simply press on. Lesson from a veteran number 3. Choose your course and make it deliberate. So often today, we relate as victims from the circumstances that surround our lives. We say, we performed poor today because we were tired from yesterday, because we were catching up from the day before. It's a rat race at times, and no one knows how to get off, let alone dream of a different wheel, or even more astounding, an actual path. Many of the men and women we celebrate today served our country for 20 or even 30 years. This is no doubt an incredible sacrifice made by them and their families. Many veterans, however, most actually, served anywhere from months to a few years. This service is of equal importance. While we can count the years a veteran served in our armed forces, and we can bet on their continued service to our communities and fellow citizens, we will never know what they did after their service or why they chose to make a transition unless we ask and listen. This past July, I married a veteran who I love and respect. As a former Army officer of 14 years, he decided it was time to hang up his boots and choose a new path. Many have called him crazy, saying, how could he leave such a promising career behind? What they didn't know is to him, it wasn't about leaving the Army. He is and will remain a proud soldier for life in our profession of arms. His change was about pursuing a second dream. It was, by all accounts, a deliberate decision to pursue a path that filled him with newfound passion and endless challenges. Starting in early 2016 and for over a year, he served the Army by day and prepared for his next career by night. Studying math, writing essays, and assembling letters of recommendation, he felt a calling to transition from a career of service to a new family, a new education, and a new challenge in the years to come. Today, he's completing his second semester at MIT. He loves what he's doing, and it shows. He's proud of his past, supporting veterans groups and initiatives throughout the community, but he's excited for his future. In seeing his passion, he's reminded me that no matter what you are doing, ensure you do it deliberately. Running full speed ahead after your dreams is exactly what you should be doing. But if you feel yourself on a rat race, running in circles, unsure of its purpose, remember to take a step back. There are hundreds of good paths to take. The important thing is to choose it, not to let it choose you. As I conclude my remarks for today, I want to thank you for letting me honor some of the veterans who have no doubt changed me, and in turn, the rest of my life. May these stories help us celebrate the men and women who have served, but also help us remember that leadership comes in many forms, that courage can be developed, and to not only choose your course, but to make it deliberate. In doing so, we not only honor them, but we help their stories of service live on, and we strive for greatness, following in so many of their footsteps. Thank you.
Thank you, Major River Street. At this time, please stand as Dean Steinwerk closes the ceremony with a benediction.
Let us be in prayer. We go forth this morning in gratitude for the valiant leadership of all those who serve our country. Particularly on this day, we remember the women here at Wellesley College, standing in Houghton Chapel, the women who lead the world from the kitchen to the battlefield. As we go forth this day, may we always remember that leadership comes in many forms. Sometimes it is in that quiet knowing of what is right, coming from our own sense of authenticity and being. May we remember that courage can always be developed, that in facing our fears and pushing through our pain, we discover a confidence that has been lying within us all the time. And may we open ourselves to possibilities. All the possibilities that we know in and through service, service to our country, service to others, service to peace. And as we go forth, may we always choose life. May we choose it abundantly. And may we lead by example, becoming a true and trusted protector of peace, ever expanding our horizon of compassion and empathy towards all. Then will the labors and sacrifices of veterans be honored, not in words alone, but by our deeds. Then will that peace reign in our hearts and in the world. So may it be. Amen.
Thank you, Dean Steinwerk, for those words and for your time today. Please remain standing as the color guard retires the colors. Please remain standing for the playing of America the Beautiful, written by Wellesley College class of 1880, Catherine Lee Bates, performed by Kimberly Shaw. Also, feel free to sing along so that I don't sing by myself. 2017 Wellesley College Veterans Day ceremony. On behalf of Wellesley College ROTC programs, thank you all for attending. A special thanks as well goes to the coordination of Cadet Jessica Schuyler, Cadet Rachel Harris, and Cadet Annie Liu, and their work with the Office of the Dean of Students, as well as Yolanda Tom, scheduling coordinator, for making the event possible. Please join us in the multi-faith gathering space located downstairs for refreshments. Thank you.